Okay, so video 2.2, we're continue talking about soil formation and taxonomy, and in this video specifically, we're going to focus on soil taxonomy. We'll talk about the principles of classification and the idea of the diagnostic horizon. So soil taxonomy, principles of classification. The first one is that principles of classification are based on properties of soil that we can observe. So these are the characteristics that we measure in the field, including color, texture, structure, and so on. The next one is based on these properties that we can observe, it allows us to group soils into classes that reflect similar soil forming processes. Or horizons, the horizonation. And finally, classification organizes soils on the basis of their common genesis. And so the common genesis are then the factors that influence soil formation. And so initially when we go out and we profile a soil in order to determine what the soil taxonomy is, we measure these observable features. And this was the purpose of labs in week 1 was to give you experience looking at the color, texture, structure of these. And in the field, when we go on our field trip, next week we'll look at the thickness, consistency, roots, pores, and other features in the soil. What we can see in these 3 different soils is that these are all different. You can look at the shape of boundaries. That would be this one would be considered wavy. See these wavy additions in here, or they can be very abrupt, very sharp and abrupt. And they can take lots of shapes for the boundary. It can take lots of different features, and we can see different colors immediately in these different profiles, and in some of them we can probably see a little bit of structural differences. So we make, based on these observations, the system is based on the type and sequence of horizons found in pedons. And all of these observable features dictate the horizon sequence. Sorry. So once we know the horizons, we further examine soil classification as a hierarchical system, and we're going to use the Canadian system of soil classification in this class. And there will be a link on eClass in the section called Web Resources. There's a link to the full Canadian system of soil classification. That's what you're going to use as your reference material for labs this week. There are other systems. There is a US system, and there is a FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the World Organization, okay? And so a hierarchical system, basically, it can be represented as a pyramid with, on the very top, the very highest level of order is order in the Canadian system. And there are 10 soil orders in Canada, and they represent the dominant soil forming factor. So this is the highest level of organization. There's only 10 of these, and as we go down in a hierarchical system, we add more details, and therefore there's more individuals in each different classifications. The next level is grade groups. And so there are 31 grade groups in Canada, and this represents the strength of the dominant process. And then the next group is called the subgroup. And there's 125 subgroups in the Canadian system, and this represents the arrangement of horizons. And then at the family level, there's lots, and I don't expect you to know beyond the subgroup level. So in this class, we're going to focus on 5 different soil orders that I want you to know to the subgroup level. There's lots, and the family is based on parent material, and at the series level, there are 600 different soil series in Alberta alone. And these are groupings of pedons in a region. So this is at the local scale. But as I said, for this class, we're only going to go down to subgroup level. And we're not going to focus on all 10 of these soil orders, we're only going to focus on 5, and I'll show you these ones in a minute. In order to start classifying soil, we look at the orders, and this is a key concept for this course. The orders are differentiated based on the effect of the dominant soil forming process. And so that could be something like additions of organic matter or translocation of clay, for example. And based on the dominant soil forming processes, soils are going to be separated at the ordered level based on the presence or absence of selected diagnostic horizons. And so this is a key concept. The diagnostic horizon is what tells you specifically that you're in a certain kind of order of soil. And so, for example, the diagnostic horizon of a soil order called Chernozem, and you guys saw these a little bit last week in lab. The diagnostic order for Chernozem is an AH horizon with specific characteristics, which we'll talk about on the next slide. For Alluvisol, it's a BT horizon. For a Podzol, it's a BF horizon. And for a Glaisol, it's a BG horizon. So these are the diagnostic horizons for these different orders, and each one of these has specific characteristics, both in thickness and chemical composition of these materials. So we'll look at some of the specific details on the next page. So soil classification of the order. So the diagnostic horizon examples are, so the Chernozemic horizon, surface organic matter accumulation greater than 10 centimeters in depth, dark color, value of less than 3.5 moist, and greater than 80 centimeters base saturation. That is a Chernozemic AH horizon. Alluvisol has clay translocation and accumulation at least 5 centimeters thick. That's the diagnostic horizon of Alluvisol as a BT. And for a Glaisol, it has reduced conditions or water within 50 centimeters of the surface of the soil, would be a BG. But just because a soil has one of these diagnostic horizons doesn't necessarily make it soil order. And what happens is that the soil orders are defined as in a sort of trumping system where we go in order of this hierarchy. We follow this flowchart this way and then down this way. And basically, what happens is if there's permafrost within 1 meter of the surface, if the answer is yes, it's a cryosolic soil. Even if it has some other diagnostic horizons, if there's permafrost within 1 meter, it's cryosol. If there's organic matter greater than 17% carbon, if the answer is yes, it's an organic soil. If there's a presence of a vertic horizon, it's a vertisolic soil. And a vertic horizon has to do with shrink swell clays, and we don't really see these in Alberta, so we're not really going to talk about that much more detail. If it has a BF, BHF, or BH at least 10 centimeters thick, if the answer is yes, it's a Podzol. And if the answer is no, we keep going down this flow chart. So if the answer is no, there's no BF horizon, then a BG or CG within 50 centimeters of the surface. If the answer is yes, it's a glacial. If it's no, we go to a BN or BNT horizon. If the answer is yes, it's a solinetic soil. If the answer is no, it has a Chernozemic AH. If it's yes, it's a Chernozem. If it's no, then does it have a BT horizon? If the answer is yes, it's a Luvasol. If the answer is no, BM at least 5 centimeters thick. Yes, it's a Brunissolic soil. And if no, then it's a Regisolic soil. And a Regisol is a bit different in the sense it's defined as an A over C. There's no B horizon in a Regisol. But the 5 soil orders that I'm going to ask you to focus on for this semester are the Podzolic order, the Solinetics order, the Chernozemic order, the Luvasolic order, and the Brunissolic order. And the reason is that we have all of these Brunisols, Luvasol, Chernozem, and Solinetics soils in Alberta, but we don't have podzols. But we're going to look at podzols because there are some interesting, striking differences. So, soil classification, we move on to the grade groups and subgroups. Grade groups, as I said before, are defined by the strength of the dominant process, major contribution of an additional process, and the subgroups are the kind and arrangement of horizons that reflect conformity to the central concept of the grade group, where orthic means typical. And so the concept here is that integrating or a gradation towards another soil order, the presence of a special horizon. So if the soil conforms to the central concept of the grade group, which is the strength of the dominant process, then it's considered orthic. And we'll see what this means in a moment when we talk on the next set of slides, or the next video rather, about the arrangements of horizons and integrating. So the next video will be about integrating.